Hi, welcome back. I'm Maryann Sasaki. It feels like it's been forever. I was at the Cannabis Summit last week. I'll bring news of that to you. Yes, in Oakland. And we're honored and delighted today to have Peter Carlisle, the former mayor of Honolulu and future mayor of Honolulu, in my view, to talk to us today about HART and other municipal issues. So thank you for coming today, Peter.
It's a pleasure to see you again, and thank you for allowing me to come after I missed the last appointment. I'm devastated by it. So, well, thank you. Well, I'll confess it.
Okay. Oh, see, yeah. Well, we were just talking about the fact that you were a prosecuting attorney. You would crack yourself on the stand if you could.
Absolutely, 100%. Hold me in contempt.
So, the first thing I really want to talk to you about, because we're really on the same page with this, is HART. And so explain to me, what are the issues now and how do you propose to fix the issues later?
The question is whether now you stop at Middle Street. And from my perspective, stopping at Middle Street is stopping in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
The question is, how can we complete the ability of people to get from Kapolei to the Ala Moana Center in the most efficient and effective way and keep costs down to the greatest extent possible? Now, nobody can foresee the future because there's always difficulties when you're doing projects of this type, and almost everyone in the country that we've had for the last 20 years has gone somewhere in the neighborhood, an average of 40% over budget.
Oh, I'm sure, because in New York, the Second Avenue subway has been being built my entire life. So,
The game plan now is to try and get the guideway going all the way to the Ala Moana Center. You don't have to do the bells and whistles and all the construction around it. You need to get people to be from Kapolei down to the final part of down to the part where they're in Ala Moana Center, where it takes only one more bus to get into Waikiki, and you're much closer pragmatically to the University of Hawaii.
Right. It's you're 15 minutes away, really, or 20 minutes away.
Well, if you're a young person and you're energetic, you can walk there. It would be a long walk for somebody in my personal physical condition, but it's definitely doable, and you have breached that awful traffic that's been coming in from the west side for so long, and so many people have been stuck in traffic for just hours and hours on end.
I don't see how people can live there. I couldn't live there. I mean, it's too far from me.
You can actually speak to people who get up in the morning when it's dark and get home when it's dark, and all of that period of time, they're getting their kids dressed, they're getting their kids to have to study. All of those things are being done with very little time to give, and it completely diminishes somebody's quality of life.
So my question is, if there's overages, which there will be, and nobody's not through any fault, it's just that this is the way things go. So how do we pay for what we need?
Well, basically it's cutting out the frills is one way. We can't continue to rely on the federal government in this particular grant that they've given us for the $1.55 billion, which incidentally was signed by myself and Dan Grabowskis. So I do have some ability to be able to bring money home, but just not through that particular grant. So we'd have to look at all the other opportunities. Is bonding something that would be useful? I think some people have been talking about a property tax. I like the fact that we're doing it with the excise tax. I think that that's a fair way to do it.
It's fair, absolutely.
And it treats everybody the same. Mm-hmm. So I would tend to continue to try and take as much of that as we can coming in, and if that has to be adjusted, so be it. But, and I always ask everybody, do you know exactly how much money you spend every year on the excise tax? You personally?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. And am I in pain and screaming and I can't feed the kids?
Part of doing business,
Yeah, so it's very painless the way it's set up right now. So I think the people who thought it through well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that there is overages will always happen if there's delay. Even in the private sector right now, when we're having delays in construction projects, they're sitting on the edges of their seat because they're losing money, they're losing time waiting to get going.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, there's so much construction, so I can imagine there's a lot of people on tenterhooks not
Absolutely.
knowing what's going on.
And they're backing up, and that's the problem. And so it's great that there's that much construction. There's great that there's that much renovation. It's sort of a renaissance.
I love it. Kakako, I love it. That's my dream place in the city to move.
It's moving in the right direction.
I think
so. I agree with you, and there's a lot that we can do to revitalize Honolulu, but we can't do it without proper planning and being able to get the right people and the right equipment to do the work now rather than waiting half a year.
Right, right. That makes sense. That makes total sense. So aside from heart, what are some other big issues? Obviously, homelessness is a big issue facing the city.
Homelessness is a huge issue, and that's one that it really requires a new type of management. And I'm working with a gentleman by the name of Ireland. And he was the guy who basically bailed out the West Side when they were having problems with the ambulance.
Is it Mike Ireland?
I think it's Jim.
Jim Ireland, right.
So that's not right either. So I'll figure it out.
No, I know the name.
And he's a doctor, and he's very, very patient-oriented. And so we were talking about it, and we came up with this sort of idea as a management structure, because there's a lot of people doing a lot of things about the homeless people, and some of it's working, and some of it's been just money thrown up in the air.
Right.
And the answer from our perspective is what you do is you have individualized intervention and consequences. There are people who are criminals, who are robbing
Yes.
people, beating people up. Those are criminals. Put somebody who's a prosecutor in charge of them and get them in jail where they belong. And then give them such adverse consequences that they learn how to behave like civilized people.
Right.
And if they don't, then they're going to spend a lot of time in prison. On the other hand, there are people who are addicted to crystal methamphetamine. There are people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. Those people need to have some sort of ability to try and clean up their act.
Right, they need, intervention.
They need an intervention, and the consequences of not doing that is they're going to continue to be miserable, and they're going to become a time when they're becoming public nuisances, and they're hurting the tourist industry, and they're frightening people off the beaches at night. That can, again, lead to the idea of involuntary commitment, which is being handled very interestingly by Cynthia Phelan, where it doesn't have to be immediate. It can be as long as there's a probability that this person is going to hurt themselves or others. And that's what the standard is on most of the mainland.
Oh, really?
So instead of being something that happens to be absolutely now a crisis, you can do it in terms of an involuntary commitment. And then at the final end of it is if you've got those people who were born, who are depressive, who were born with some mental illness, and it's but through no fault of their own.
Right.
And so they need frequently, and this is where Dr. Ireland comes in, they need to be put on different drugs. They may need to be given the type of treatment that will assist them getting out of where they are, and depending on how bad they are, whether they have to be institutionalized. All of those things are questions, but really the ones who you can help, those are the people you want to step in, sort of, there are brothers and sisters.
Right.
They didn't ask to be born with the mental affliction that they had. We can help them, and Jim can be a real good person to point that in that direction.
Terrific.
So I would trust him, because it could be, you may have somebody with ADD and you're giving them one type of medication when really they're a depressive and they need a different type of medication. And that's where an expert like Dr. Ireland steps in and assists those people, and he's willing to do it. But you have to embrace that as sort of an overall management structure for dealing with the homeless people.
You have to divide it up, in other words.
You do.
And realize it has different parts, so it's not one monolithic problem.
Exactly, and then the important thing is you've got to really, put your arms around these people who it's not their fault, and do what you can to give them a healthier and a happier future.
It's so exacerbated. Mental health issues might be actually relatively minor, and they're so exacerbated by life on the street. I mean, it really can be like a relatively minor problem that can be cured with simple medication, and people can have happy and healthy lives. And if you just fall out of the system somehow, it's really hard to get back in.
Well, and they may not be necessarily inclined to want to go into the system, but once they get into the system and they're on the proper medication, then suddenly you've got a real win-win for everybody.
Right, sure. You have a citizen, a self-sustaining citizen, and somebody that contributes to the civil welfare of the city or county. So that's what we all want, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So tell me, what other? I'm relatively new, as you know, to Honolulu. I'm from New York, and I've been here about a year now, a little more than a year.
And even though you're from New York, being from New Jersey, I will forgive you that affliction.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but you do sound a little like me. I have to say.
I do. Every once in a while, I talk like that.
You can't help it. It's born in you. It's in you when you're born. So tell me what other serious issues you think you'll be facing, come the election, and what's.
Well, I think one of the most important things is fiscal sanity. I mean, when I first was elected mayor, it was right before the Great Recession. And it was clear that they were spending money that they didn't have and building up debt in the mayor's office. So once I got in, I immediately started tending to that in the way that you have to. There's a lot of people who are working with the government who probably don't have to be working for the government. And if
it's
you
a cottage industry here,
well,
isn't it?
yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. And and the usual political solution to that is spend more of other people's money and grow government.
Right.
And that's not realistic. And it's gotten us into $1 trillion worth of debt over in the Beltway, and it's gotten a number of very, very large cities to be in huge trouble. I think Detroit was way up there on the list at one point. The answer to that is to downsize the workforce, but you don't have to do it by firing people right, left, and all over the place. People are routinely, when you're in charge of an organization with 10,000 people, people are routinely basically retiring.
Right, coming and going. It's permeable.
Yeah,
it's a permeable,
so it's not fixed. They'll find a job elsewhere. If you've hired the right kind of people, this is what the sad thing is, they'll get hired for a better job.
Absolutely.
In a heartbeat, and that's a good thing, but you miss somebody who's talented. Right. And so if you've got somebody who's really talented, you certainly hope that they can keep on staying with you as long as your tenure, but it will not work.
They have to have the public service gene, because there certainly isn't the financial remuneration that you can get in the private sector. So you have to really want to be in public service.
You have to be in public service, and you have to be willing to, give up all of those dangling things. And after a while, they'll find something that's more challenging because they've been doing it. The right type of employee is always moving forward. And so as a result, what you basically do is you stop hiring, you let people retire. Some people have health issues and they have to move on. And then you freeze hires. And then you, on occasion, what you will also do is to make certain that the people who are there are doing the job that they're capable of doing. And if they're not capable of doing it, then you have to confront them with it and say, okay, look, this isn't working out. This is what your deficits are.
That's hard, wow.
And it is, but the good thing, and it's what's the worst part about it is sometimes there are people who are just the nicest people on the planet Earth.
Absolutely.
They're at-will employees, and they just aren't made for that particular job.
Yeah.
But they don't have any other place that they really know that they're going to go to. And those you give, say, look, okay, it's not working out. It's not anything that has to do with your personality or your efforts.
Right, you can help them transition into where they should be.
It's trying to get me to be a professional basketball player and a center.
I
mean, that's not going to happen, and
it's
just not going to happen. So, and I love the game, and I'd love to be able to do that, but I cannot do it. So you let those people go gently and see whether you can find some place where they would go where they would be a better fit.
Right.
And you find people who are lawyers, who've been lawyers all along, and suddenly they're just tired of it. But for most of their life, they were a really, really capable and happy lifeguard.
Right.
They go back to being a lifeguard, they're happier, they're more productive.
Yes,
and then suddenly, boom.
There should be, in my view, there should be fewer people practicing law because there's so many people that are so unhappy. But I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some more. I'd like to know a little bit more about you personally. You're watching Life in the Law, Maryann Sasaki. It's thinktechhawaii.com. Join us at 415-871-2474 after the break.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is John Waihe'e, and I used to be a part of all the things that you might be angry at. I served in government here and may have made decisions that affects you. So I want to invite you in. I want to invite you in to Talk Story with me and some very special guests every other Monday here at Talk Story with John Waihe'e. Come on in, join us, express your opinion, learn more about your state, and then do something about it. Aloha.
Hi, you're watching Life in the Law. We're thrilled to have Peter Carlisle on today. We're discussing municipal issues and the future election, and we should talk about the election at large and then the election writ small. So obviously, I mean, in my view, this is going to be a blowout election. I don't think that the presidential election, I don't think that there's any doubt that Hillary Clinton is going to win this election. As time goes by, it seems.
I think that that's becoming more and more obvious.
Yes.
I think a lot of people have a great deal of issues with the credibility of, I think, both candidates.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's any way around that.
Nope.
And I'm looking at this and thinking, couldn't we really have done better in terms of the candidates? But Hillary is luring me into this with some of her most recent and I think very artfully spoken
Yeah, I think
thoughts.
she's getting better as a candidate, but I agree. I mean, I'm a diehard Democrat, and and I'm a diehard feminist, and I take issue with her from time to time. So I agree. And Donald Trump, as a New Yorker, I can't even believe that. I mean, it sort of seems like some kind of some kind of nightmare dream. That's
Well, the way the whole campaign is sort of played out with Bernie and Hillary and the Donald, I have to wonder what people in the rest of the world are looking at us here in America and thinking, what is going on?
They do.
Over
That's exactly
there?
what they're thinking.
So-
Because I had a guest from Sweden in for a week, and she said everybody in Sweden is saying, "What's going on over there? It's like some kind of TV show. It doesn't even seem real, And now with Brexit, the whole world seems to have gone crazy.
I was going to say that's the one thing that's relieving us right now because Brexit has caused so much havoc
Absolutely.
everywhere.
Distraction.
That it's now distracting them from our presidential
I
campaign.
did not see that coming. I thought for sure they would stay in the union. I was positive they would stay in the union. I have to say.
That was exactly my thinking, but they've done it, and now it's sort of causing this great realignment. And I think it's going to settle down. Some of the dust is going to slow down. I mean, you can take a look at the stock market from these tumultuous plummets to now it's recovering.
Right.
There's going to be, at least when the deadline's 2 years, but I would think that you're going to have something that's going to be balanced enough so there'll be new alliances in different shapes, fashions, and forms.
Yeah, I think so. And globalization is such that they can't become unbound with England, with Europe. England has to have some relationship. Britain has to have some relationship, just because the markets are global. So it'll never be like the 19th century again. So they'll find their way, I think. So let's talk about the mayoral election. Let's see. You're running. Mr. DeJoux is running. Mr. Caldwell is running.
Running.
Okay. And so tell me what distinguishes you from your opposition.
Well, for one thing, I want to see rail finished to the point where it can actually be a valuable method of transportation on the island.
So do I.
Two, I think that the treatment of my good friend, Mr. Tato, the ethics man, right now we have, for all intents and purposes, lost ethics in the city and county of Honolulu. That's a real effort for me to put up with. I mean, there is no ethics commission for all intents and purposes in terms of the legal counsel and executive officer.
Fascinating.
So, yeah, it's absolutely gone. I mean, all of the cases now are sitting around collecting dust. So I see that. I'm looking beyond that to some of these wild things that are going on with the police chief. And,
that's crazy.
And that's something that's a real concern to me, largely because of my law enforcement background. This is really a black eye, and it's the kind of thing that makes people say, "You see, I told you all along that the police are, bad people," and that's
But it's such small potatoes. I mean, I don't understand. I always thought, well, if I'm going to be corrupt, I'll go big or go home. But this was a small potatoes that sort of
Well, but now you've got the federal people are in here,
I know.
and you're getting people who are refusing to do what they're supposed to be doing under those circumstances,
I know.
and it's very, very. We have really a tremendous police force. And
I think so.
We've had it for years, and it's largely because of the luxury of having people living in their own neighborhoods
Sure.
and becoming police officers. So that gives you a network of people who you can learn things from, who you can enlist to help you, and who are willing to help you. And that's not necessarily, when I was in Los Angeles, and particularly East Los Angeles, I went on a
it's a
ride
different
along,
thing.
and it was like, there were 3 white people in that car, and this was an invading force.
Right, armed.
And that's
right.
exactly what it was. It was it was not a good situation
Right.
at all. So when police officers actually got out of cars during traffic stops, one would stand behind it with their gun pulled.
I'm
And
sure,
that's-
because New York can be like that as well. The police don't live in the city typically, and they share a large cultural. There's a large cultural chasm between the citizenry and the police force, and that's not good. And that doesn't exist here.
It's always been just a top-notch, wonderful department. I hope that it will get back on the track that it needs to get on. I'm sure it will.
I'm sure if you're mayor, it will.
So it'll get there with or without me, because I'm sure they're that much of a tremendously well, very, very well trained and very experienced force. So it'll happen, but it'll take a couple of detours to get there.
I want to ask you about 3 of my personal issues that I like to advocate for. And the first is gun control. I know we're very advanced in the United States with respect to our gun control. Do you have any, is there anything in the hopper that's being considered? Or, I mean, we don't seem to have the problem that the mainland does.
We have a tremendously vigorous enforcement policy when it comes to guns, and not the slightest one, not even the smallest one, is our ability to basically incarcerate people first time if they're using the wrong type of weapon for a significant period of time without possibility of parole.
Right.
So a gun involved and used in a crime, a felony, is going to get somebody automatically in jail. And that's a very important thing. 2, there is not a right to carry unless you have the permission of the police chief. And
That's huge.
and
That's
that's
so
absolutely
huge.
gigantic, and it's and the police chief, the gun rights people sit there and say, well, he never gives them out, and they're absolutely right. They don't, and I always have been of the opinion that if you do not have adequately trained people, and it's rare that you have really, really well adequately trained civilians, it doesn't take
I
a lot
agree.
to be able to own a gun, then you've got people who are getting into situations that are dangerous. Now, I'm very happy about a rule that was recently passed that enhances our ability to deal with improper use of guns, and that is, we don't let people drive cars when they're intoxicated. Now there is a rule that will preclude people from being able to carry or be in possession of.
That's very
a-
sane.
with-
That's very
with alcohol
civilized.
in their system.
That's great.
It makes more sense, and and people do, the disinhibition.
Oh, absolutely.
With alcohol has always been a problem. There's higher highs, there's lower lows, there's temper, all of that kind of thing becomes problematic. There's abuse of spouse and loved
Right,
ones.
people just don't have, they become not rational, become irrational, do things that they would not normally do. This actually segs into my second subject, which is really close to my heart, as the viewers know, which is the cannabis dispensaries that are imminent. I think this is going to be terrific for the well-being of the island. I'm really very pro this, and
I am I'm sort of one of these people who has 2 views of this. First off, I am 100% fully committed to the idea of medicinal marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't the slightest doubt. There is the science there to prove unequivocally that medicinal marijuana works. It helps people, and it can be used. There are types of medicinal marijuana that you can smoke till the cows come home, and you will never get high.
No, they have it. It's such a science now that they can
Exactly.
determine, the specific chemicals that will treat specific ailments, and the post-traumatic stress syndrome responds so well to medical marijuana. I mean, this is a huge problem among veterans, and veterans are a large group that are supporting medical marijuana for this reason.
And then the next step is, do I believe that it's time for us to go ahead and legalize marijuana? And my attitude to that is our experiment with legalizing alcohol has made alcohol the most dangerous drug ever made in the United States. So it hasn't worked out well. Are we ever going to go back on it? No, we're always going to have alcohol. But do I think we should add to that with the potential of synergistic effects by the two drugs being used together? I believe that that's not something that I could support.
I think I understand your position, and I'm really undecided about my own position, to be honest with you. But I think it seems like it's a force that's. Well, we'll see the next election, the next wave of California's voting, and we'll see the next wave of what happens.
Maryann, I'm not going to let you get off this. Okay, what is your opinion right now? Okay, would you tell people now to smoke? They should legalize marijuana. Come on,
I
come on,
do.
come on.
I'm in
Okay,
favor.
there you go.
But
All
I'll
right,
tell
there
you.
go.
But
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I mean, it's a very self-serving reason. It's not It's not in the best interest, public interest. You know, I'm a business lawyer. I'm a corporate lawyer, and I see vast opportunities for businessmen in marijuana. I mean, just like cigarettes and alcohol and so on. And so. You know, I see that and I think that could be great for the economy of the state. I mean, it really could. But whether it's the best thing for the public good, I'm not prepared to say that yet.
The business aspect of it, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that there's a lot of upsides to that. There's certainly a lot of upsides to the alcohol business. But
Right.
My fear is that putting the two together is not really a healthy thing. And so you're right, I'm stuck on that. But is this something that could generate business? Yeah, but the price is very high. It's going to come with people who shouldn't be with heavy equipment. It could be people who are driving cars and killing people, which you can do. I mean, your reflexes are reduced when you
No,
have
it's the
marijuana,
same.
so, yeah,
It's the same.
But
We
the other
have
really good thing about it is, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a lot more studying of marijuana. You know how
I
much
think
we know
that's
about
good.
alcohol, so I think that's the
think that's
research
great.
that's going to come with this, I think is outstanding.
Well, we only have a short amount of time yet, and my last issue was LGBTQ rights, which I'm very involved in. And I guess I just want to close out by saying I'm very proud of the way our city acted with respect to Orlando. I think that this is a growing community and a growingly tolerant community, and you know,
I
I'm
think
very
it's one
impressed.
of those things that for years and years was in the closet. I think that people have come bursting out. I think that's a much healthier thing in the long run.
Yeah.
I think it's a community now that we've seen the horrible loss in
Right,
Orlando, and you know, and to be directed at specific people because of who they
ugly,
are
yeah.
is disgraceful.
So we're gonna wrap up, but thank you so much for coming. I'm so delighted to have you. I can't tell you. I missed you last time so much.
I'm saying it's my pleasure, and now I understand that that's my camera, and I'd like to say hi, I'm Peter Carlisle, former mayor, and hopefully future mayor of the city and county of Honolulu.
Bravo. Okay.